Ya li madad. In the holy name of our beloved Imam, the Lord of the age and time, He who is the most beneficent, the all-merciful, the Lord of the Day of Judgment, the Lord of creation, the Lord of the magnificent throne, Khudavand, Nur Maulana Shah Karim al-Husaini Hazar Imam, please say Salwa. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. Members of the Jamaat, it is the blessed night of Lailatul Qadr. This is a very important night in our tariqah. When I say our tariqah, I mean in our Ismaili tariqah. Actually, the night of Lailatul Qadr is an Ismaili night. Although it is a universal night, but it is truly an Ismaili night. Why? The simple answer to that question is, the whole purpose of Lailatul Qadr was imamat. That's the answer. There was no other purpose to why Lailatul Qadr came to be. It was for the universal declaration of imamat. That is why the last prophet of God, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was sent. That is why he brought to mankind as the final revelation, which becomes the testification, the testimony of truth as to the lineage of imamat till the day of resurrection and after that. I know for some of you this may sound a very bold statement, because by and large everything else that you hear about Lailatul Qadr has to do with the revelation of the Quran and all of those other history, even the one that we just heard, which is perfectly okay. Remember, members of the Jamaat, Maulana Hazar Imam has said to us on Bombay on November 22nd, 1967, please say Salawat. I have told you on many an occasion how important it is that if you learn parts of the Quran, you should understand their meaning. It is important that if you recite or know parts of the Quran, you should be explained their meaning. Do not forget that our branch of Islam is an esoteric branch of Islam. Esoteric means that what is written is there, but its meaning is not there to everyone. It is there only to those who are part of our Jamaat. And it is important, therefore, if you learn parts of the Quran, you should be able to explain the esoteric meaning of those parts. Please say Salawat. Now you've heard what Maulana Hazar Imam says. The meaning is there only to those who are part of our Jamaat. I am not speaking about Maulana Murtaza Ali. I am not speaking about Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah alayhi salam. We are speaking about Maulana Hazar Imam, our beloved 49th Imam, telling us, if you learn the Quran, then learn the esoteric meaning. See, that meaning, that esoteric meaning can only come, according to our tariqah, only from the Imam of the time. And you will see why. In a minute you will see why the Imam and only the Imam can give that meaning. No one else on this earth or on this creation can give you that meaning. One day they asked Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, they said, what is in the Quran? What is in the book of God? And Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam replied, he said, the book of God contained 4 things. Ibara, Ishara, Lataif, Haqaiq. Simply put, the literal expression, the announced expression, the literal meaning is called Ibara. And the Imam say that is for the common people. You give people a book, they open it, they read, and they take the literal meaning, and that's it. No further than that. That's the first meaning. Then there is the allusion, ishara. That is for the intellectual elite. A man of intelligence and intellect will say, what does God mean by this? How to get a deeper meaning? What else does he say about this? There is an inquiry of the mind, second level. Then there is the third meaning. The Imam says the hidden meaning related to the supra-sensible world, lataif. And that is for the friends of God or saints, awliya. Like who? Jalaluddin Rumi, Hafiz, Ibn al-Arabi, and all those great names of mystics that we hear. What did they do? They also read the Quran, but they were able to draw a meaning that belongs, a hidden meaning that is related to a spiritual dimension. So if you take the Masnavi of Jalaluddin Rumi, you know that people who speak Persian, they say the Masnavi is the whole Quran made into story forms that Rumi produced into this Masnavi. And today in the world, Rumi is the most read poet from Sufism and from Islamic mysticism, especially in North America. Everybody quotes him. And we will quote him tonight too. And you have already heard him in the write-up that was tonight in Jumat Khana. Then there is the fourth meaning, the spiritual truth known as haqa'iq. Haqa'iq is the plural of haqiqat. And that meaning only comes to the prophets and the peers, please say salawat. And who gives them that meaning? The holy Imam gives that meaning to the prophets and to the peers. Nobody else knows that meaning. Now, just that you make a little connection. You see the ginans we recite in Jumat Khana? They are from whom? You know it. They are from peers. And who are these peers? They are appointed by the Imam. They are divine beings. They are the highest in creation. And why we recite Ginan in Jumat Khana? Because Ginan gives you the spiritual truth that is in the Quran, in our own language, in our own form. Ginan is Quran. And if we understand the Ginans, what will you understand in the Ginan? You will understand this fourth level of meaning. The meaning given only to the prophets and to the peers, they are hidden inside the Ginan. This is why Maulana Hazar Imam has said to us, this is a unique tradition. It must be kept up from generations to generations and the generations yet to be born. Now imagine this, the 49th Imam telling us this is a unique tradition. It must be kept up for generations yet to be born. So what's in there? Hakikat. The hakikat of the Quran is in the Ginans. That's why we recite Ginan in Jumat Khana. It's a form of divine knowledge, marifat. We say, technically speaking, gnosis is this Ginan. But that's a subject for another day. But for today, members of the Jamaat, as we continue, in the Holy Quran, this particular verse of Suratul Qada, it says, "Lo, we revealed it on the night of power." Now stop right there. There are other verses in the Quran that says, "And we sent you the Quran in the month of Ramzan," which is this month. And there, the word Quran is very clearly mentioned. But in this verse of Suratul Qadr, one wonders, why didn't Allah not say, "We revealed the Quran in the month of, on the night of power"? It says we revealed it. What was that it? Was it the Quran or was it something else? We shall tackle that in a moment. And the verse continues and says, what will convey unto thee what the night of power is? What will convey unto thee what is Lailatul Qadr? The night of power is better than 1,000 months. The angels and the Spirit descend therein by the permission of their Lord, with all decrees that night's peace until the rising of the dawn. These are very powerful spiritual symbols that is in this ayat. Well, the first thing you already know, on this night, 23rd night of Ramzan, you know that not all Muslims know about this night. Even though in our write-up we make the statement that Muslims celebrate this night, it's not true. Muslims celebrate this night in the last 10 days of the month of Ramzan, including the 23rd, but not all Muslims. They celebrate on the 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, 29th. You know why? Because when this ayat was revealed, you see the tone of this ayat? This ayat says that, what will convey unto thee what the night of power is? The night of power is better than 1,000 months. So people went to the Prophet and said to the Prophet, O Prophet of God, what was that night? Because it is not said 23rd here. It just says it's a night of power. And the hadith of the Prophet says, I don't know. I only know it was an odd night and it was in the last 10 days. So since that time, Muslims, in order not to miss this day, they celebrate Lailatul Qadr on the 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, 29th. So different groups in different days. But Mawla Murtaza Ali alayhi salam, when this ayat came and some of the devotees of the Imam of that time came to him and said, Mawla, the Prophet says he doesn't know. Now you think about this for a moment. Do you think he who is the Prophet of God, who could remember the whole Quran, he did not remember which day this day it was? Come on. It's not logical. So then what was it? The Prophet would not give this secret just to anybody. It was meant for the true mu'mins. It was meant for the followers of Mawla Murtaza Ali. Please say salawat. It was not meant for just anybody to come on this night and just grab this night at their own leisure. Even this date was kept secret. So Mawla Murtaza Ali to Salman Farsi declared this night, because he had gone to the Prophet and the Holy Prophet said, go to Mawla Ali, he'll tell you. And Mawla Ali told him it is the 23rd night. And how did Mawla Ali know? I'll come to it in a second. So, the night of Qadr, Lailatul Qadr, as you know, you've heard the meaning already. It is a combination of two words, Layl and Qadr. Layl means a night. Qadr amongst many other meaning. The word Qadr is not simply those one or two words that you hear. It's very rich and deep in meaning. The word Qadr also means power, glory, majesty, destiny. It is the night of power, the night of majesty, the night of destiny. Qadr also means two words, power and will. The word which are encompassed into the word for destiny, and which in fact gives the same bent of meaning, but it also means free will and predestination. Free will and predestination. This word Qadr, inside it has hidden this meaning. In other words, how much free will is a human being going to be given, and what is going to be his destiny from this night? And there is a criteria. How will your destiny be between now and next Lailatul Qadr? That secret is hidden inside this night. So this is the night that is a blessed night, because on this night, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received something very precious. And let me just illustrate that to you, maybe by just giving you a little scenario. I want you to think logically, members of the Jamaat. You just heard a story that was read just a few minutes ago. The Holy Prophet was in this cave of Mount Hira. He was sitting there. He used to go many times, but that particular day, that particular night, the night that we call today Lailatul Qada, the 23rd day of Ramzan, when he was sitting in that cave, something extraordinary happened to him. Something unimaginable happened to him. He had an experience that cannot be expressed in human terms. It was a spiritual experience of the highest degree. No word, no logic, no mind can just capture that experience by words. That's why it says, what will convey unto thee what this night of power is? And what happened? You know the story that is being said. The angel came to him and said to him, God has chosen him as a prophet. And he was told to read, and he said, I cannot read. And the prophets and the angel says, by the order of God, you are ordered to read. Some process took place, and then eventually he read. And that's why it is often said, the first verse that was revealed to him was this word that says, Ikra, read. Read in the name of thy Lord who created. And the verse continues. So goes the story. And we came out of the cave, and people said he was in a state that he was never seen before. He was trembling and so on. He came to Bibi Khadija and told Bibi Khadija what happened. Now imagine, of all the people in the world, the final and greatest prophet of God, when he gets his experience, he could only go to his wife, Bibi Khadija. The first person to know this was Bibi Khadija, this woman, this holy and this devoted woman who immediately knew what it meant. You know why did she know? Because Bibi Khadija herself was a spiritual woman. Muslims have forgotten this. Muslims don't even remember this. But Maulana Hazrat Imam reminded us in his Gilgit visit. When Hazrat Imam went to Gilgit and Hunza not so long ago, he said to our women, he said, it is my wish that women should participate in all the decision-making processes of the Jamaat. And then he said, do not forget the example of Bibi Khadija. Maulana Hazrat Imam reminded the Jamaat, do not forget the example of Bibi Khadija. What do you think was in Bibi Khadija? Besides the fact that people say she was the richest woman in Mecca, in Arabia, she was a merchant, the Holy Prophet was a business manager, and all of this. Does anyone actually speak about the spirituality of Bibi Khadija? Muslims have forgotten that. And we have forgotten that too, because we hardly ever speak about the spiritual part. But the Imam had to remind us. The Imam reminded us. See, this was a unity between them. They knew it. Well, that was one side of the story. But I want you to think in a very logical way. The Prophet received this experience. He came out of the cave, but what did he come out with? Every write-up that you hear, not only ours, but even every story written, that he was given this revelation. Now some people are very specific. They say he was only given the first verse of this revelation. And others have different stories to tell. But did the Prophet actually come out of the cave with a book in his hand to say, here it is, I've got it, I've got the book. Here's the book, I've got the revelation. Did it happen that way? And again, I want you to think very logically. If it was not the book, well, you and I know the book was not even created after the death of the Holy Prophet. Historically, the actual book of the Quran was not even put together until the time of the Caliph Usman, the third Caliph. Then where's the question of saying that he was given this revelation? You see, members of the Jamaat, there is a gap in knowledge here. And most people simply assume when they say, oh, well, revealed it. He was given the Quran. And people have this idea in their mind. He came out of the cave with his book ready-made. Here's the revelation. This is not what happened. This is not the inner meaning. You know, as Imam said, look at the esoteric meaning. We are a Batini sect in Islam. As Imam said, we are an esoteric interpretation. So what happened? You see, members of the Jamaat, the word Quran has different meanings. It doesn't just mean that book with 666 verses. The word Quran also means Nur. This is the connection. The word Quran also means Nur. So what did he receive on the 23rd of Ramzan? Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was 40 years of age. He was 40 years of age when that revelation came to him. But remember, according to our faith, Muslims have their different belief, and that's okay for them. But for us it's not okay, because our imams and our peers have disclosed to us the inner meaning of this. Other Muslims say, well, he was told in this cave he is now chosen as a prophet. Until then, he was a businessman, he was a shopkeeper, he was an orphan and all of this. Do you think that is the case? A person who's to become, he who is the greatest prophet of God ever sent on earth, the chief of all the prophets, the 124,000th prophet that God had sent, that for 40 years of his life, he didn't know that he was a prophet. It defies all common sense and defies all logic. And yet, it's so sad when we read these stories in the exoteric, we just take them in as if that is the truth. Look what the Pir says in the Ginan. The Pir says in the Holy Ginans, the day when Prophet Muhammad, Nabi Muhammad Mustafa Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the day when he was born, on that day, the gates of 7 heaven was made open, was flung open. Saat saragna kuliya che dwar, tis din Nabi Muhammad janamiya, please say salawat. Now, members of the Jamaat, I don't know whether you are following me with this information, because I want you to think that if the 7 heavens, the gates of 7 heavens was flung open because of this prophet being born on earth, you think he didn't know? You have to really do some search over there. And you know, it's not an ordinary act from the Creator to open the gates of 7 heaven. You see, all this is connected to that very night. So you have to follow the spiritual path, even though Islam was not yet revealed. You know why? Because Islam cannot exist without Mawla Murtaza Ali alayhi salam. As I mentioned to you in the beginning, that was the reason why Islam came into existence. It says in our Ginan by the Pirs, without Mawla Ali, there would be no Islam. And Holy Prophet could not begin his mission without the Imam of his time. Because if you look at all the other prophets, we call them natiqs. Imams are called asas. With every natik there is an asas. So if you take simply this cycle of time, that is to say, this last cycle, and you say that beginning from Adam, because that is where the Quran begins. Mind you, there was a cycle before Adam. We are talking about this cycle. With Hazrat Adam, there was an Imam. And what was the name of that Imam? Do you remember? Sometimes people say, oh, there was no Imam before Mawla Murtazali. The name of the Imam was Set, Maulana Shish. Then the next great prophet, there were many prophets in between, but the next great prophet, Prophet Noah alayhi salam, Hazrat Nuh, the Imam with him was Maulana Shem, Sam. The next great prophet after him was Prophet Abraham, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the prophet with him was Hazrat Ismail. The next prophet after him was Prophet Moses, Musa Nabi. And the Imam with him was Maulana Harun, his half-brother Aaron. Then came the time of Isa Nabi, Jesus Christ alayhi salam. And during the time of Jesus, the Imam was Shimun as-Safa Maulana Malikus Salam, that is Simon Peter. The Christians recognize him as Simon Peter. When Christians speak about Simon Peter, he was the Imam of the time. Imagine the shock they will get one day when this history is revealed and they say, wow, that was the Ismaili Imam? Yeah, he was. He was. And then came the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Imam was Maulana Murtazali alayhi salam. So then, we are at a stage whereby we are looking at this spiritual history, and look how our peers have given this description to us. Because although today I think I'm probably the most fortunate Alwaaz in the whole of BC, because Muki Sahib is given 45 minutes and all other Alwaazes maybe 15 to 20 minutes today, and so I'm taking that time to give you this is an elaborate history, but there is an end to it, trust me. So there is this hadith. It is said in a hadith, this is the peer speaking, O Muhammad, if not for thy sake, we would not have created this world. Now think about this. The creation of the world, we are talking about the creation of the world. How long is this world? Now we are not just talking about the physical world. Not just the earth, we are talking about the whole cosmos. And it is not just the whole cosmos. We are also talking about the spiritual cosmos. So this hadith says, O Muhammad, had it not for thy sake, we would not have created this world. This means all that was created came into existence only for thy sake. And in another hadith, it is said, if there were no Ali, we would not have created thee, Muhammad. Please say Salman. Meaning, Muhammad was created from the Nur of Mawla Ali. And from the Nur of Muhammad came the whole cosmos, the whole everything you can imagine in creation, everything in our visible universe or non-universe, unknown universe, everything that is in the spiritual universe, you name it, everything came from the Nur of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now look what the peer tells us about the purpose of creation. Okay, this is the point of contact about Lailatul Qadr. The Holy Peer says, now understand that the purpose of creation of the world was to make known that manifestation of the divine beauty and perfection who is in possession of all his attributes. Where is the eye to see and to understand this? Following the path of reason. In simple language, the Peer says that the purpose of creation was actually to disclose to people who was that one being who is in possession of God's total attribute, and everything you imagine about God and the Creator is Him. And then, of course, he asked this question. He said, what is the eye to see this and to understand this, following the path of reason? And then there is a reference to the Quran. And what is said in the Quran? And this is absolutely marvelous because we say it every time in our dua. You know, in our dua, in the third part, of our dua, what do we say? Ya ayyuha rasulu baligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik wa illam taf'al fama balaghta risalatahu wallahu yasimuka minan nas. O apostle, O prophet, bring to humanity. He didn't say bring to Arabs or bring to Muslims of that time. This ayat has to do with humanity. O prophet, bring to humanity the message that we entrusted to thee. Now wait a minute. Now think for a second. When was this message entrusted? On the first day when people say go to Revelation? Was it on the second day? The third ayat, the fifth ayat in Mecca, in Medina? Where was this message entrusted? Look to the ayat. O prophet, bring to humanity the message that we entrusted to thee. And if thou dost not deliver it, thou wilt not fulfill thy mission. What was the message? What was that message that was entrusted to him? That message was entrusted to the Holy Prophet on this night, the night of Qada, when the Holy Prophet received this nur. Whose nur was it? There is only one nur. There is only one nur. That nur of Allah is the nur of Hazar Imam, please say Salwan. Is the nur of Mullah Murtaza Ali. Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the night of Qadr received this nur. And in receiving this nur, the Holy Prophet, in order to teach us and to show us, he was entrusted this message to tell humanity that the possessor of this nur is Mullah Murtaza Ali and his progeny. Till the day of resurrection, this nur will continue into this world. That's why this ayat begins to say, O Prophet, bring to humanity. Now you tell me what humanity was there at that time. There was no internet, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no, what form of communication? Those few thousand Arabs that was there, 40, 50, 60, 100,000 Arabs, was that the humanity? That was only one country. What about all the other countries? So to whom did the Prophet speak? And this ayat is very clear. Speak to humanity. You see, that was the beginning of a process. So, the peers continued and says, now he answers the question. Because in the beginning, remember he says the purpose of creation was so and so. Now he answers, thus, the creation of the world, the sending of the prophets, the revelation of the sacred books, all of these were intended in order that humanity could know him, about whom we have spoken through every prophet and who became manifest at the time of Muhammad, please say salawat. All the names of the Imams I gave you with all the great prophets, those are the names of the Imam. They were mentioned with all the prophets. And this, now the peer explains, now came the time for humanity to know, not just one segment of people. So the night of Lailatul Qadr, members of the Jamaat, was the night the nur of Imamat was made evident into the world. The nur has always been here. Remember what the Quran says. Allahu nuru samawati wal arz. He is the light, he is the nur of the heavens and the earth. The Quran is very clear. He is the nur of the heavens and the earth. So when it says the nur in the earth, Earth is at least 4.3 billion years old. When there was no human being, when there was no other forms of life except whatever unicellular type of protoplasmic organism that lived at that time of the earth. But Allah says His nur was there. And indeed it was there. But that's another lecture for another day. But that is a fact. And eventually, when the time came, when the human being was created and placed on earth, he came to be known that amongst human, the possessor of that nur and the one that was revealed to mankind was Maulana Murtazali alayhi salam. That is the lineage of the Imamat. And therefore, there is this other ayat in the Quran which now makes it very clear. And this ayat says, this is the same ayat that was recited at the opening of the museum. O mankind! You see this ayat, how it begins? Ya ayyuhan nasu. O mankind! Who is speaking? God is speaking. O mankind! Indeed has come to you an undeniable proof. O mankind, indeed has come to you an undeniable proof from your Lord. And we have sent down to you Nurun Mubin, a manifest light. See, two things are mentioned here. The undeniable proof and Nurun Mubin. What is the proof? The proof is that book, the book of God, the Quran. And Nurun Mubin, manifest light. This is why the Holy Prophet said, Ali is with the Quran is with Ali. When the Holy Prophet died, he left this hadith. He says, my progeny, my itrat is tied to this Quran. They will never be separated till the day of judgment. Don't you think this was an indication to all concerned in humanity? If the Quran is tied with the itrat, in the progeny of the Prophet, if the Quran is tied with the Imamat, that then the Imamat is a source from which you would get the meaning of this book. But you have heard Maulana Imam say that over time there has been thousands and thousands and thousands of interpretation of the Quran. Well, you know what? There will be thousands more. The question is, you have to decide, which one do you want to swallow? Which one do you want to accept? You can, if you like, take those parts and really go into circles and then try to figure out what it is. Or you can, as it states in our constitution, the ta'wil and ta'lim of Allah's final message is given by the Imam of the time, please say salawat. And that is what we follow. And that is what we follow. So you see, members of the Jama'at, when the Holy Prophet got that nur on the day of Lailatul Qadr, it took the Prophet 23 years, bit by bit to translate that Nurani experience to the people, so that to make them ready for the announcement about Mullah Murtazali. And that happened at Ghadir Khum, when the Prophet then was told, Muhammad, now declare them, don't worry, you will be protected. The Prophet was worried. How are these people going to take it? Even despite this declaration, you know what happened in Islam. As soon as the Holy Prophet died, those greedy leaders of that time, they split Islam into two. They created a dispute. They seized the Khilafat. They betrayed Mawla Ali despite the order of the Prophet. Mawla Ali never fought for the physical Khilafat, but he kept the spiritual power and spiritual authority. And Abu Bakr and Umar and Usman, they seized the position of Mullah Murtazali and they created a split in Islam. They became Sunnis. Those who stayed loyal to Mawla Ali became Shias, and in the end, when all three of these caliph were died, people came to Mawla Murtaza Ali and said, "Oh Ali, please become our caliph." Mawla Ali refused. They begged him. For the sake of Islam, Mawla Ali accepted to become, and he became the fourth caliph. And despite that, you know the history. What Muawiyah did, what happens in the Battle of Siffin, and all of that. But that is a part of the history. We are concerned tonight about the spirituality, and that spirituality is the Noor. Therefore, members of the Jamaat, the significant part of Lailatul Qadr in relation to this notion of the Noor, what is it? What's the take-home message for this night? The take-home message is salvation of the soul. Lailatul Qadr is the night for the salvation of the soul. Now, having said that, in your mind, you think again this ayat. If I say to you, salvation of the soul, so before I come back to it, just very quickly, think in your mind, do you think salvation of the soul is simple? The soul, since it was separated from the spiritual world and came down in the physical world, it went through millions and millions of birth and rebirth. We can prove it from Quran, from Hadith, from Ginan, and from all other world scriptures revealed by different prophets. And why did the soul keep coming back? Now we have that whole spiritual history, we have it. Why did it keep coming back? Because the soul could not reach salvation. Then what happened? This declaration of the Imamat created the door of grace, became open. To whom? To the Hakikati Mu'min. Remember, those who follow the Hakikat, those who recognize the Imam, those who understand the Batin of the Imam, who the Imam is, those who recognize the Imam as he who gives us our salvation. This is a farman I'm quoting you. Remember the farman of Imam Sultan Muhammad alayhi salam? He says, we have come in this world for the salvation of your soul. Imam knows all about the path that leads to salvation. That's why to us it's significant. And look, the Pir confirms that in a Ginan. The Pir says, Farman mane fera tare. Fera means birth and rebirth. Simple formula. If you can only understand, if you follow the farmans of the Imam of the time, you will not come back in this world. You will be salvated. But it is a matter of faith. So therefore, when we come to the night of Lailatul Qadr, it is a reminder to the murids of the Imam, this is the night of salvation, a night that you can get also the same experience Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received on this night. And where will that experience happen? It will happen in Baytul Qiyal. This is why the Quran